we ended up selling it, and we can go into the reasons why we sold because that was a very big decision because it was making us a lot of money a year just in distributions. But it ended up being around a 21, 22% IRR, and we made over, if you look at MOIC or the how much we made on top of the initial investment, we did more than three times. Hi, everybody. It's Mike, the Richer Geek Podcast. Today is going to be a little bit different. We're going to talk about some of my journeys in the hotel world, what I'm seeing, and how I got started in the hotel world. I have my lovely wife, Nichole, join me, and she's going to be doing the interviewing process, and I'll answer the questions as best as I can. Nichole, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. It's great to be back on the podcast. And I think we wanted to start sharing a little bit about a hotel that you just sold. And if you can maybe take us back to how did you get started with this hotel several years ago? And this is the one that you just sold in July.
Yeah, great question. So I was really big in the multifamily space, and I got started in single family homes, which turned into fourplexes and eightplexes, and then on and on and on. And about 8 years ago, someone came in and bought our portfolio. And one of the things that really worried me, I was buying everything at between 8 to 10 caps, and I sold everything at around 4.5, 5. And I had to make a decision. Did I want to now buy something at that low of a cap rate, which I didn't. And, as I've mentioned in all of my podcasts, it's all about networking. And as I was deciding what asset to go into, I had a friend of a friend who introduced me to Vic, who ended up being my partner. And he had been in the hotel space for about 20, 25 years at the time. And I was really intrigued about hotels. And I sat down with him and talked to him, and he was saying that he could buy, and at that time, hotels were in the 10 cap range. We really don't use cap rates that much, but if you converted it, it's around 10 to 11 cap at the time. And I was like going, yes, this is what I like. And but I didn't know anything about hotels. So thinking outside of the box, I said, Vic, I don't know anything about them. You do. I have the money. I want you to teach me how to find assets in the hotel space. I want you to look at them. I'm going to go to all the meetings, all the showings. And then if and when we decide to buy something, you're going to teach me everything you know. And that was 8 years ago. That's how I got started. And we just sold that hotel, the very first hotel in Arizona.
That's awesome. And how did you and Vic, how did you find this hotel, this specific one that you got started with, and then why that one?
Yeah, and what's funny, I was like going, why are we buying a hotel in this area? It's like going, oh my God, it's like I'd never even think about it. But Vic is the hotel guru. Well, we went around looking at different asset classes, and what we were trying to find, or not asset classes, but hotels, and what we were trying to find is one that was mismanaged. Um, Maybe an aging owner that had turned everything, all the operations to one GM. And we found this one in Arizona, and it was very, very poorly run. And the GM at the time basically did everything and anything he wanted, including I'm not going to say stealing things, but he put in his own washer and dryers, and it was taking the money and really didn't care. He was just basically abusing the owner. And for us, that's a perfect opportunity. So we found this deal. Um, and later, what Vic explained to me is, off the highway, off of a major highway, outside of a major metro, that's where we'll find the deals. It was across from a hospital. It was on a main thoroughfare, And he is the one who introduced me to the different drivers, the things that you need for hotels and why people would come to this particular hotel, which to me, I was like, I don't want to buy this hotel. And he goes, you want to buy this hotel, it's going to do a wonderful job. And we ended up buying it.
Yeah, that's so great about, I mean, we always talk about location and real estate, and this is the combination of the location plus the drivers, the
Mhm.
economic drivers in the area. You talked about meeting with Vic and Vic telling you about 10 or 11 cap, but how did you actually meet Vic? And then what has that partnership been like?
Yeah, so one of the brokers that was involved in the sale of our multifamily, I was talking to him. It's like, he's showing me all this multifamily, and I'm like, I'm not going to be someone else's cash cow, and I just didn't want it. So he said, you know what? I know a guy that knows everyone that is very good at a hotel space. So we actually met at a place and did the introduction. And what was interesting is Vic had never, ever gone into a partnership in his entire life. In 25 years of owning and managing hotels, he had never done a partnership. And he took a risk, um, partnering with me. And it was something new for him. And the partnership was something new for me in the hotel space. And it's worked out fabulously.
Now, this particular hotel, what were some of the things that Vic did or you were involved in to make it be so successful?
Great question. It's a combination of finding, number one, we self-managed at the time. And, because it was just so hard to find property management groups that cared about the asset. Um, we focused on doing what was necessary with the franchise, but not going overboard in the renovations, and then marketing it um, as that sub-market outside of a major metro type of hotel. We There are some national groups that are with the trucking agencies, and so we reached out to them, did some national contracts with truck driving companies. And one of the great things about this hotel, because it was off of the major highway, we were the only hotel in that little town off the highway that had truck driver parking. So that was really, really big for us. And that ended up being one of the major drivers for keeping us going during COVID.
Now, you just recently sold this hotel. The numbers were very good. Can you talk us through what those numbers look like and just kind of the overall financial experience?
Yeah, without going into exactly how much we made, we did it as a joint venture, and we bought it at a very good price because the owner knew that he needed to get out. Fired the GM, of course, brought in a wonderful GM that was there the entire time that we had it. And we ended up selling it. And we can go into the reasons why we sold because, that was a very big decision because it was making us a lot of money a year just in distributions. But it ended up being around a 21, 22% IRR. And we made over, if you look at MOIC or the how much we made on top of the initial investment, we did more than three times our initial investment, my initial investment. So I made three times as much money as I initially put in, which is extremely good for any type of investment right now in 2025.
Yeah, that this hotel sale was one of those things that made me look at my 401k and think, what am I what am I doing here? But I digress. It was a very good deal. So you mentioned a little bit about why you guys ended up deciding to sell. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, one of the big things is you can maximize your returns if you don't use a broker. If you're not paying percent, 5 or 6% off of millions and millions and millions of dollars. That saved us 400,000 or 500,000. And this group came in, knew what that little town was doing and how it was growing, and wanted to have a hotel in that area. And they reached out to us without a broker and just said, I want this hotel. Well, first they lowballed us, then it was the second, third, you go back and forth as you do in real estate. And it finally came down to a price because they were in a 1031. It's a large group out of California. They have a lot of hotels. And they finally came back with the price that Vic and I were like, you know what, it's just, number one, we can't say no to that, but we also thought it was the right timing for that area with the interest rates the way that they are, not knowing if they're going to go down, not knowing if the valuations are going to go down, just the economic uncertainty. So we huddled together and just said, you know what, I think now is the time to cash out.
So it was 2017, sold in 2025.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then,
And we made a lot of money, during that time period. So it was a win-win situation for everyone.
I know I was kind of disappointed. I mean, it was obviously a good selling price, but it had been just a cash cow property for so long. So it's kind of sad to see that go, but makes sense.
Yeah, because one of the things, it's like, I'm giving up a nice salary, if you say, or, the distributions on that. So, we could keep it and make, whatever it is we made, or we could make a lot now. But I think it was the right timing. It really was.
If you look back on that whole experience, what are the key points or lessons learned that you'd want to share with others?
But those things don't go for sexy necessary. Everyone wants, maybe that urban metro hotel with the rooftop bars and the pools, and all this sort of stuff. And, it's kind of like class A multifamily against class maybe B minus or something like that. This was definitely, it was outdoor corridor. It was everything that I thought. It's like, I don't want to own this thing. But, what I learned is that people make a lot of money on non-sexy things. It doesn't necessarily need to have all the glim, the chandeliers and things like that. You just want that hotel that just really, really performs. So that was really one of my biggest lessons is quit looking for the glam in hotels. The ones that really, really make the money are the ones that are small towns. They're really nice. They do what their purpose is, and they just make a lot of money. So that was the biggest thing. And then also the drivers, wanting it on a major highway, wanting it next to a hotel or next to a bunch of different things that drives people to that hotel. And then what I really learned is you don't always have to do what the franchise always tells you to do. There's always negotiations. That was the biggest lesson that Vic told me was, the franchise wants to do this, 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 and he just said, we'll do one of them and we're going to do it the way we want it. So that was another big lesson for me.
I would say too, the other lesson is just finding an experienced partner to work with. This kind of relationship, and it's continued, and we'll talk about that in other episodes as well. It's just finding, networking, developing the relationship, finding a good partner that you can trust and rely on, and that brings something else to the table. Maybe it's not capital. In this case, it was expertise.
Yeah. And, the biggest thing that I tell listeners is if you're going to get into another asset class, don't do it alone. There's a huge, huge difference between multifamily and hotels. Hotels are a business. I would have failed miserably if I'd have said, I don't need a partner. I have the money. I'll just go buy. Number one, the franchise wouldn't have even given me the hotel because franchises need to protect their image, their brand, and they require people with experience to own those hotels.
So, any other last parting words for anyone thinking about getting into hotel investments?
Yeah, the best way, maybe start out as a limited partner, get in with some syndications where people that have a lot of experience, and then ask questions. Once you're a limited partner, getting distributions, bug that GP, the general partner, to death and learn. The other way is if you don't want to be a limited partner, do a JV agreement with someone like I did. You have the money, you want to come in, you want to get into the hotel arena, partner with someone like Vic and I as a JV, and then learn that way. But don't do it on your own.
Thank you for taking us through that opportunity. It's really exciting. There will be more to come. You talk about now you're under 1031. There's all kinds of future hotel projects that you'll be working on.
Yes. Stay tuned.